Hi, I'm just gonna go over some wedging things for you. A lot of times people don't know exactly how to wedge or why we wedge or any of those things. So what I like to say, and you've probably heard many potters say maybe before, but wedging essentially aligns all of the clay platelets, the little discs that make up clay, gets everything kind of lined up. It also makes your clay more consistent so that you can work with it better. And it also removes any kind of air bubbles that may have been caused just from using clay and not wedging it properly when you're finished. Sometimes things dry out. So basically I'm just going to go over some things so that you can create a project and make things work. So here we go. I just pulled out this bag of clay, right? This is always the thing that I love to find, is clay that hasn't really been kind of worked properly and then stuffed back in the bag. So maybe you do this to yourself, maybe you have a bunch of students who do this, or kids in your studio, whatever, but I try to teach everybody how to wedge clay so that we can keep it in a workable consistency. Otherwise it dries out, I recycle everything, and so we have to go through the whole recycling process. If you can eliminate that in the beginning, way better for the environment, way better for your studio assistants or your studio techs or whatever you've got going on. So wedging is also really, really grounding. It's a great thing to do when maybe you're not feeling that great or you don't want to think about anything else. Putting your hands on clay feels good. So I've just got 3 different kinds of clay. So this is pretty wet clay. This is a little bit harder, and this is probably the hardest clay that I have. So I want to kind of combine them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice. So I've got my wire tool, and I'm just going to slice some of this. Kind of do a little cross section. And I look in there so you can see that little spot there? That's a little air bubble in there. So these are the kind of things that we want to eliminate when we're working. You can also see different consistencies. I don't know if you can actually see that, but you can see there's a little lighter section. So this is all part of how we're going to work the clay so that we can make it enjoyable for all of us. So there's a couple of different schools of thought. I don't do a lot of wedging when I'm doing hand building projects, but I do when I'm throwing. So this clay, we're going to be doing a hand building project, so I'm not going to worry too much about it, but the wedging is kind of the same. The maintenance, clay maintenance, is still basically the same. So anything that's a little harder, I can spray down a little bit. Anything that's a little wetter, I can lay it out on my table. And you can see by these little spots here that this is moisture that is being removed from the clay. So you can use your table, you can use plaster boards, you can use material, canvas, that kind of thing, that will remove moisture from your piece. So when I'm taking 2 pieces together, like this little bit of hard stuff, I'm gonna make a little sandwich. And I'll sandwich it in with some of the other stuff. And when I wedge, I also try not to wedge massive amounts, mostly because I do a lot of wedging and I don't want to hurt my wrists. So I like my table width right about here just because of my height. A lot of times people will have it be a little lower, which is great. Having it too high makes it really hard. It puts a lot of strain on your muscles. So we want to eliminate as much strain as we possibly can. So I've got this little sandwich, club sandwich of clay right now. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to use my body when I'm wedging. And I'm going to use the palms of my hands, not so much the fingers. And I'm going to lean on that with my whole body. And as I do, I tip it forward, reposition my hands, and I'm trying to kind of hug the top a little bit. So then I lean and then tip it up, lean and tip it up. And you can actually feel the consistency. Yeah, so just kind of keep doing that. I'm gonna flip this around. I don't want this to get too long, too skinny, so I'm gonna flip it around because I'm really just kind of working that clay into itself. And you notice I tip up towards myself, reposition my hands here, and then I push it against the table. And I don't smear it across the table, I just kind of nudge it a little bit. So I'm going to pull that up towards me, do it again. Go, yeah, that looks great. So this is just like anything else. Wedging just takes practice. Makes you feel a little more comfortable. comfortable. And then there's the spiral wedge too, which I'll just kind of go over. When I'm throwing, this is called the ram's head wedge. I should also tell you that. So it's supposed to look like a little ram. I always say it looks like a duck. Okay, so spiral, I'm gonna tip this up on its side, and I'm mostly gonna use my left hand. Pretty much this is the same, it's the same motion, it's just a little bit at an angle. So I'm gonna push with my left, the right is really just guiding. I'm gonna tip it back up, reposition my hand, push down, and you can see that I kind of rock it on the table, kind of a nice little circular motion, tipping it up. And again, this right hand isn't doing much, it's really just kind of repositioning and guiding. The left hand is doing all the work. You could do it the other way, I suppose. I don't know why I do it with my left hand. But that is pretty much the spiral. And if you start to see a little tail develop, just reposition it a little bit differently so that you get kind of a cone shape at the top. You know? And then when you go to throw, so this little stuff here at the bottom won't be great on the wheel. So I'm going to stick it on the table. I'm going to rock it around a little bit. And I just want to kind of eliminate any strangeness down there. And then I can throw this on the wheel. Sometimes people throw it sideways on the wheel too. But now this clay is ready to work. So it's important to keep your clay in a workable consistency. It's just good for the environment. It's good for the air. We don't want to dry a bunch of clay dust floating around. So keep practicing. Thanks.